The Node.js community came up with this new feature called Async Await, which is basically a wrapper around promises, and it allows you to start writing code that looks and feel more synchronous. The only painful part about this, in my opinion, is that in order to handle errors properly, you have to wrap your code with try and catch statements. It can become painful once you have multiple asynchronous operations where you might end up with multiple try catches that are nested. And that just makes code unreadable, in my opinion. What I want to show you in this video is basically a way to use the async await feature without the try catch statements. Let's get started. What we want to do is something similar as line 5. And this basically is simply a function that waits 3 seconds and it returns us a random number. You can see the implementation here. If it's not a number, it returns with an error. And otherwise, it waits that amount of time and returns you a random number between 0 and 1. It's wrapped in a promise just so that we could make it look like an asynchronous operation. Now, in order to catch errors without the try catch statement, we will wrap the result in an array and we'll add the first index to be the error and the second one result. And right now, this won't work because random will just return us a number. We'll have to do some modifications later. But for now, let's just show you the overall structure of how the code will end up. And then we could write an if statement if it's an error. You want to and let's return. Oops. Otherwise, we will console log the results. All right, let's remove the old code. That's the code that we want to end up with. There's not a lot of nesting. There's only this if statement to handle the error, but that's just okay and normal. In order to transform a result and make it an array, we'd have to add a wrapper, a function that sits on top of any asynchronous work. And let's call that one fetch. And then we'll require fetch. And that's just a function that we will define here. The fetch function will simply take a promise and will return us the result. We'll return null as the error and the result. And then otherwise, if there is an error, we'll return the error and return null for the result. We can make this pretty by putting some indentations. Let's just recap. Random function returns a promise. We give this promise to the fetch function. We wait for it to resolve. If there is no error, we return null as the error argument, and we give the result as the second index. And if there is an error, we simply provide the error in the first index and then null in the second one. What's neat about this is that we don't need to use try catch anymore, right? We could simply do that and then it should return us the error and the result. We can give it a try. There you go. You get a random number between 0 and 1. And if you give it something other than a number, it's supposed to reject with time should be a number. And there you go.